Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Could I have the book? I don't remember anything I read.
It's all, one time, it's all Gawain and Galad, mainly.
Oh yeah,
But
was
one
the
time
shortest
there's-
Gawain and Lan chapter ever. One time what?
One time, it's supposed to say Gawain, but it does say Galad.
It does?
Yeah, it's on.
The typos have been so
The
egregious.
typos, we'll work it out. Galad said, "You let me protect you, Egwene."
Oh man. Egwene.
Yeah, so that really cracked me up. Imagining the sudden, switch. Suddenly it's Galad that
Yeah.
Egg is bonded to.
It's like Sense8.
Yeah, it would
just
be really
pops in.
funny. And suddenly it's just Leto. I see you, villain.
I see you, villain.
God, Sense8 is really good.
Well, it sure is. This is Everybody Hates Gawain.
Yes.
Your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally Gidger.
And if you caught it, the person who just sneezed was Tybalt. I'm not sure if the mic picked that up. So 3 chapters today, quite short. So, and wrapping up some long-running subplots. So we might have a short episode today. I always say that, and that's always the longest episode of all time. But we start with chapter 42, Jackie Robinson's number, and boy would he be insulted to be connected with this particular string of words.
Sorry, Jackie. You didn't deserve this.
Sorry, Mr. Robinson. It's Gawain recovering the day after the fight in Tel Riyadh / he fought a bunch of Shanshan assassins, and one, of course, and Egg bonded him. And he's like, wow, it's so rad having this bond, because now I know that even though Egg doesn't look emotional, she has emotions.
Can you believe she has feelings?
It's like... She's not a mannequin, Gawain.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He's the stupidest person on the planet.
It's like he has object impermanence, but for feelings.
Yeah, he does have feelings impermanence.
Yeah, he's like, if I don't see them, then they simply don't exist.
And it's like, how have you seen anyone's feelings?
I
You
thought
can't see
You've been
feelings.
spending all this time with Aes Sedai. Like,
Yeah.
aren't you aware, at least vaguely, that, yeah, some of them have feelings? Not all of them, I'll say. Speaking of Aes Sedai who are mannequins, one of them has been revealed to be Masada, because they, scoured the tower to find a person who was no longer, intellectually present. And they identified it as Danelle of the Brown Aja, and Edwin's like, yeah, she just kept to herself, so sort of hiding in plain sight. And I'm like, but not really hiding in plain sight, though, because
She was kind of just hiding.
Yeah, she just was sort of hiding.
You just kind of missed her. You couldn't find her.
You just were kind of like, yeah, we won't bother any of the social recluses.
There's no way a bad guy could be doing
Could
that.
just be hanging out in their rooms.
No way.
They can teleport, Egg.
Sometimes Egg is a little dumb.
Yeah, I mean, they're all a little dumb. And Egg's like, I don't know how to talk about how you came back and sort of were disobeying my orders to come back to the I need to keep up my rep, my girl boss rep. And Gawain's like, oh, you can just you'll figure out a way to spin it. This is a pointless conversation.
It really is.
At one point, Gawain's like, we should get married. Cause Egg is like, yeah, you'll have to move into my room, but you'll have your own separate little nook. And Gaywen's like, oh, she's so charmingly prudish.
Which is like, what a rude thing to say about your partner.
And I'm like, okay. She's like, why don't we get married? And Egg's like, I can't get married. My parents would be pissed off. And I'm like, girl, you have burned that bridge. You became the Amaryllis seat without sort of CCing them in that major life decision.
Yeah, I do find this a really clumsy way I think it is intended to accomplish a couple things. One, it's supposed to be funny. Egg is this like crazy powerful lady, but she's still also 19
Village
or
girl,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, she's still got her village girl roots, and she's still young and maybe a little idealistic about life and marriage or whatever, romance. But it's also like it feels incredibly infantilizing to be like, Egg has grown up in every way except sexually.
Yeah, it also feels a little bit like where I think I mentioned this in the last section or a couple sections ago, that we're just trying to frantically cross off subplots before we get to the last battle, right? Mm-hmm. And in the Wheel of Time world, a romance subplot is not complete unless the people involved are married and or, depending upon if there's a channeler involved and or it's a monogamous relationship, Rand can't marry 3 women yet.
Yeah.
So, like, if they can channel, then there also has to be a warder bond involved. Mm-hmm. And so Egg and Gaywen have to get married in order for this to be
checked off, yeah.
Because otherwise we'd be enforcing a worldview where loose women wander the streets. I don't know what.
Yeah.
We joke about Egg being prudish, but it's the author and the sort of ingrained world building that is incredibly prudish here.
Totally. I mean, we're talking about it all the time, but I think we've laid out in a previous episode, like, how every single female character goes from a place of being a quote-unquote untamed woman who's got ambition, and maybe she's a little rude, and quote-unquote rude. Some of them are quite rude, but...
Some of them are just grade A bitches.
But, like, you know, defying all these social norms according to this world, and mostly according to our world, about, like, what a good, again, in air quotes, woman should be. They're powerful, they're ambitious, they've got their own things going on, and then one by one, they get forced into a heterosexual, mostly monogamous, mostly marriage. And this, in many ways, just kind of, it shouldn't have to be. Marriage does not have to be this way, but for many of these women, marriage sort of kind of blocks their plots off in very specific ways. They almost get, like, bumpers put on them where they start to quote-unquote behave better because they're more sympathetic to men, or they've got a man to control them, or they're making all these decisions about how to protect the men in their lives and protect the men's feelings rather than sort of going about their own ambitions. And
yeah, and that theme is continued in the rest of these sections, where we get a culmination of Berelane's subplot as well as Morgoth's subplot. We see Berelaine and Glad interact more or less one-on-one for the first time, and it's pretty bad.
If you've ever watched, like, 11-year-olds try to flirt with each other, I think you'll probably get it.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to find it a little charming. But it's like, the thing is that Berelaine has been, throughout the series, set up as our, like, you know, horror character.
Yeah.
In the Madonna horror complex, Berelaine is the latter. And Berelaine has to be redeemed now into the Wheel of Time worldview by having her paired off with a man, you know, a sort of swearing off her villainous slut ways. And also clarifying for the readers, just in case we were thinking ill of her, that don't worry, she was never really a sexually empowered woman who went after what she wanted. She was just sort of self-sacrificing for her country. She was only ever going after men who she thought would be able to provide a political advantage to her very small city-state that she's trying to protect. So, okay, great. We have virginified Barrelane.
Yeah.
And we've set her up with King Virgin, Glad.
Yeah, the Virgin Overlord.
Yeah. Get it? He is dressed all in white and
In case you missed it.
is deeply, I know we joke about Glad fucking a lot, but Glad is very, like, asexual coded. He
Yeah.
just as not really. He sort of awkwardly fumbled flirting with Edwene for a little while, but it sort of seemed like it was just, he was doing it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
You know, and he hasn't really done much with women since then. Bye,
Hey, Ed.
It sometimes goes into the back of the bookshelves to sort of hide and...
Just have some Ed time.
Yeah, I don't blame you, Ed. I wish I had some Ed time. And of course, we get Morgause pairing off with Talonvor. Finally, they make up, which is just Morgause being like, I changed my mind and actually I do want to be with you. And then they go and have Perrin marry them, which, because it's Perrin, is just like them swearing their oaths in front of... And, you know, they've had 30 seconds to prepare, but they're incredibly eloquent.
Yeah, they're this... Whatever.
It's really the author scrambling to be like, oh yeah, these two characters do have reasons to love each other. Here they are.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we noticed that.
It's just a waste of page space, honestly.
Yeah, we've
care.
railed against the Morgause and
Yeah.
Talonvor relationship enough, probably, but just so you know, that's been set up. So Edwene and Gawain is just kind of like a continuation of...
Yeah, and just to kind of like hammer in our point, like Morgause and Talonvor, speaking of hammering, they really just like cannot stop hitting the nail on the head here about how, you know, Morgause is more powerful than him, but it's not actually lowering herself to marry someone of lower social status, which is true because social status is made up. But in the world of this book, it is not true. Mm-hmm. You know, like she is sacrificing the potential of maybe having a more politically savvy marriage for the sake of Andor or anything like that. And Morgause goes on her whole, like, empowerment thing about how she's had to sacrifice in marriages before so she could get to do one for love. And it's like, that's fine. Feels a little random. Morgause has never seemed to really care about that. And she's also, though she seems to hate them, has also claimed to love both Gareth Bryn and Tom at the same... So I don't really know what's going on there. I'm not articulating this point very well, but it's just, like, the same thing. Like, Morgause basically gets nerfed as like a ambassador,
a political
yeah.
actor, more or less. Yeah, Talonvor's like, you can't marry me because you're going back to help Elaine, and she might need you to marry someone to cement a political alliance. And I'm like, boy, first of all, what an awkward mother-daughter talk that would be. Hey, Mom, I need you to get me a new stepdaddy.
Yeah.
And he will be a stepdaddy. Wait till you hear about how I treated Tom in the early stages of our relationship. But Morgause is like, no, I had a terrible marriage when I was young that was arranged, and then I refused to get married because I was traumatized by my first marriage. And so now my marriage is just going to be for me, not Andor. And I'm like, it is totally fine to be like, I am actually not going to do that. Like, I have personal autonomy over whom I marry. Mm-hmm. But the way it's set up is just like, so we're also framing this in the same moment where Morgause is like, I am going back to Elaine, but I have to be extremely careful not to supplant or surpass Elaine. I will literally put myself out to pasture if it becomes too possible that people are rallying around me as a different leader, you know? And so it's like this weird, like, retirement marriage.
Yeah, the whole thing just feels like we're taking Morgause off the table, off the chessboard entirely as a character, as a political actor is the perfect way to put it. So,
I mean, she's basically been a non-political actor this entire time, and in fact, ever since she ran away from the palace in Andor, we have been more or less dangling on the thread that at the point that she does come back, maybe she will be a political actor. You know, why would we follow the queen in her dramatic escape from one of the Forsaken if she wasn't going to be relevant at some point? on the same sort of political field on which she has been relevant in the past.
And you know what the end of that plot was? She's not going to be relevant.
No, she more or less should be dead.
Yeah.
Morgas has been a useless character throughout the entire series. She was taken away from Andor so that Elaine would basically have an open slot to fill. And everything she's done since then, I mean, she hung out with the White Cloaks, who we didn't ever need to be around with, or we could have had Galad's point of view if we needed insight into what's going on with the White Cloaks.
Yeah.
You know, the guy who actually joined them. And then she hasn't done anything that couldn't have been done by someone else since then.
Right.
So.
Useless.
And of course, they have to get married because
God forbid they
for some reason their lives are dictated by an 80-year-old woman.
Yeah,
Lenny.
it's like you have to get married. It's improper.
Yeah.
And it's like Morgas has had sex outside of wedlock before.
Yeah, like also...
It's not a big deal.
Can someone please just tell Lenny to shut up?
Yeah, it's also not your business.
Yeah. It's insane how this character has been in the plot for so long.
I think I need just... No offense to Basil Gill, but I need the whole crew from Andor to just be done.
Just go away. I need Lenny. Lenny's up there with fucking Joffrey Baratheon for most annoying characters. Most hated. I mean, Talon beats her, but...
Talon is such an insufferable bastard. He, like, lays his sword at Morgaz's feet and is like...
Yeah, just to, like, really cement this image of vassal swearing to lord, you know? It's... Anyway, back to what we were initially talking about, which was Gawain and Egg. Gawain and Egg are like, yeah, maybe we'll get married. Gawain's like, don't worry about it, I'll contact your parents and make the arrangements for our wedding.
Imagine your Egg's parents running the inn in the decimated and then rebuilt Two Rivers, and you get a letter from the Prince of Andor who's like...
Or more likely an in-person visit, since you can teleport. He, like, waltzes in. Remember way back in The Shadow Rising when Perrin came to the Two Rivers accompanied by, like, Gaul?
Yeah.
And Gaul was like, here, roof mistress, and presented Egg's mom with, like, some incredibly fancy treasure he'd looted from the Stone of Tyr.
Yeah.
And she was like, thank you.
Thank you.
That's so nice.
Oh, God.
Wouldn't you be like, I wish this guy would marry my daughter? Instead you get Prince Loser over here.
Yeah. Oh, you're so right. How could you ever believe in the value of any man ever again after Gaul, the 6'9", incredibly sexy Aelman,
shows up and
with
gives
treasure?
You, treasure. You'd be like, wow, I want this son-in-law big time.
Yeah, or she could just be like, why don't you be my second husband? And then Egg's mom has...
One night she's talking to Bane and Chia about ale customs.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, worm. Now, darling, referring to her first husband.
I have a proposition for you.
He's like, oh, I'm in.
Yeah, how could you not be?
Yeah.
Gaul is the best. But instead you get Prince Loser who walks
Riding in on his high horse and is like, I'm marrying your daughter. And they're like, ugh.
Yeah. No, you're not.
He's like, I'm from the Royal House of Andor, which has neglected your sort of whole county for generations.
Yeah. You think local municipal governor, whatever his name is.
No, I can't even
Bran?
remember his name. Yeah, Bran Olvier. It's like Brandolwyn or something.
Brandolwyn. This book is so ridiculous. Anyway, he's politically active and he will not stand for this type of nonsense.
He's like, you loser. Anyway, Egg's like, get some sleep. I gotta go talk to the Hall of the Tower about all the shit that's happened. Gawain's like, great. Gawain does say to Egg in this conversation, like, I promise I'll except for your protection, which I am in charge of, like, I will obey you in all things. And Egg just, like, takes that at face value, I guess. Then Gawain immediately goes and sort of skirts that line by investigating the bodies of the Shanshin assassins, and, like, he's been told by whatever Shanshin Soldam that they are powered by these terangrial rings, so he finds them and just pockets them. So, like, What's happening here? Galen himself notes, like, oh, clearly the tower didn't notice that these were Terangrial. And he clearly knows if they knew, then they'd take them away. And if he told Egg, probably she would want to take them away. So he doesn't tell Egg. He hides them.
And I know he didn't directly disobey an order there, but, like, this is some real, like, lie of omission type
It has
shit.
been 30 seconds flat, and you are already, like, finding the gray areas around that.
Yeah, like, don't make a promise you're just going to break. You could have just said nothing.
Yeah. I mean, but he only said it so she'd fucking sleep with him / marry him.
So
You
he's
two
a
are
manipulator.
impossible.
He's a bad guy.
Then we switch to Lan, who
For no reason.
gathers more men. He tells us, one, he's pretty sure the bond, his warder bond has changed and that now Nynaeve's in charge. He's like, because it's more anger than
Someone back there's real pissed.
real piss.
Hi, Tipple. Are you stuck?
But he accumulates yet more people, including the grandsons of 2 current borderland rulers. He's like, you guys should probably stay with your people since you are, heirs to the throne, like, in the line of succession. And they're like, no, we want to go with you on your man quest. He's like, all right, and finally is like, I give in and will let anyone who wants to ride with me. It's just, I'm sick of this shit.
These princes are also named, like, Kaisel and Kendril, and there's something really wrong with me, because I was like, these sound like Kardashian names.
Kaisel Kardashian and Kendril Kardashian.
Yeah.
And they, too, are not doing much to
I guess they
improve
do
the
kind
world.
of sound like Kylie and Kendall, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Kaisel and Kendril.
I was like, they must be siblings, because they both have alliterative names, but they
Yeah.
appear to be the grandsons of different kings.
They're just
Silly.
besties.
They're just besties, yeah. Then we switch over to Perrin and Galad as they're wandering around the battlefield, kind of talking about what went down. Perrin's like, here, I have a proposition for you. You can get to Andor in 30 seconds flat if, A, you can get your army to use gateways, which, voila, Grady and Neild, my besties. And you have to essentially swear fealty to me for the duration of the last battle. Like, you have to subordinate yourself to my command. In the middle of this, they find, like, a wounded guy, and Galad has, like, a swooning moment where he's like, Perrin's so compassionate and brave as he cares for this wounded man.
And you're like, okay.
You're like, okay.
Is this the start of a porno?
Keep it in your pants, dude. But Galad's like, yeah, I'll do that. And then he's like, whoa, that was weird. And Perrin's like, I know, it's because I'm Ta'veren. Hee hee hee. And runs away.
Once again, the consent issues around being Ta'veren and willfully manipulating that are really just left
Yeah.
up for discussion.
Just sort of be like, we don't want you to look too closely at that
Don't
ethical
worry
gray
about
area.
that,
Just,
yeah.
whoo. We then switch over to an exceedingly rare Alejandra point of view.
Yeah.
As she is, like, working to make bandages or something. Women's work, classically. Fail and Berylane are nearby chatting, and Alejandra kind of eavesdrops on them about stuff, and she's just like, this is so weird. I feel like they're acting like friends. She's like, I know they were faking it at first, but now I feel like they're actually becoming friends, which is whack. Then Perrin comes and sits down, and so Alejandra goes over to Berylane. They talk about marriage. Then Galad comes up, and he and Berylane have the most awkward flirting sesh of all time. And Alejandra in the background watches this and is like, this is nothing but good for me because it will get the White Cloaks out of my freaking country.
Yeah.
So that's another subplot checked off.
Yeah.
Good for Alejandra. You're the only one I can celebrate in this.
I know. She's like,
Chapter.
yeah, you take him.
She's like, I didn't even have to do anything. I just had to put Queen Slut in front of King Virgin and ba-boom. Problem solved. Domestic terrorists, gone.
I think the plot would be funnier if Berylane was actually Queen Slut and was actually just like a very, like you said, sexually empowered woman, and she meets the biggest loser of all time, and is like, unfortunately,
God damn it,
that's the one for me.
I'm a morosexual. Except she didn't fall in love with Matt. We know she's not a slut because she didn't sleep with Matt.
And who wouldn't?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of marriages, plots that have to culminate in marriage, Matt.
Yeah.
Matt was king slut.
You're right. Matt
had
was
to get
king
married.
slut. Matt also... Oh, the next chapter.
Yeah, then we get more Goss's point of view as they're preparing to go back to Andor, but they reunite. She reunites with Talonvor. They decide to get married and are like, okay, we'll hold off until tomorrow so we can have a fucking wedding night in the grass, I guess. Like, guys.
Why don't you go to Camelin and get married where you can, fuck on a bed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You freaks.
You guys are so weird. Perrin is inspecting a bubble of evil that has turned all the wood in like a nearby little stand of trees just super dry and dead. Everyone's like, that's wacky, and he's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? He chats with Fail about how all their problems are being solved. Then Morgoth and Talonvor come up and are like, we're getting married, please marry us. And Perrin is like, okay, well, married.
Yeah. Sign of the cross, holy water.
He almost literally says shoo.
Yeah.
Okay, now shoo.
Now go. Off with you.
Now get.
Now
Get.
yeah.
Go fuck or
Get
whatever.
out of here.
And everyone's like, oh, that was incredibly bad.
Feels like you'll do better next time.
And Perrin's like, what? That was good. And she's like, it fucking sucked, my dude.
Sometimes Perrin and Fail are such a funny couple.
I know, they are funny. Perrin then gets hit in the back of the head and is like, oh my god, assassins around every corner. Keeps getting hit in the head until he finds out that someone's throwing acorns at him, so he goes into this little stand of woods. Relevant is the fact that there is like currently a gateway open next to Camelin. So just in case you're keeping track of the age-old argument that we can't open gateways next to cities in case of the sheep, Perrin don't give a fuck.
The age-old argument.
Well,
we'll tally Perrin.
That has been my biggest beef with this series.
Yeah. What about the sheep?
What about the sheep?
We'll track Perrin on the side of anti-sheep for this type of behavior.
How dare he? Anyway, he goes into the woods and finds Matt, who has caught a badger to recreate his iconic introduction in The Eye of the World. Yeah. It's less iconic now. It's just cringy.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, guys.
Like, we could have just left it at throwing acorns at Perrin. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was incredibly funny.
Yeah.
He was just like, hey, loser.
He's got a spitball. That would be funny. But the badger... And also, like, why is there conveniently a badger? This is dumb.
Yeah, Perrin's like, you actually caught a badger? And Matt's like, yeah.
And what, like, it's hard?
I'm like, how do you just catch badgers?
I know, what? Badgers are super mean and
They're
really
scary.
big.
Yeah, it would be way more hilarious if Matt was just covered in claw marks. He was like, I got rabies for the bit. That would be a little more in character. Perrin's like, oh, this is so great to see my old friend Matt. I'm so glad that I don't get my swirly colors when I see him. Now we're just vibing. They hug, and Matt's like, I just came to tell you that there are so many assassins after us, so watch yourself.
Yeah.
And I'll see you later. I need to borrow one of your Ashaman. And Perrin's like, what? Matt's like, later. Come find me at this inn. And Perrin's like, okay, goodbye. Yeah. He's like, how'd you get by Grady?
Yeah.
Because Matt was the only one coming the
other way. Matt's like, don't worry about it.
And Matt's like, I probably smooched him or something.
Yeah, if you were Grady and you saw this hot man walking into camp, what would you do?
You'd be like, oh.
Welcome.
Hello.
Grady and Niald should have been with Matt. That would have been more fun.
Would have been so iconic.
If they were just traveling with the band instead of traveling with the Wolf Guard or whatever Perrin's loser army is calling themselves.
The Wolf Guard. But yeah, it's a pretty anticlimactic reunion. I don't know how it would have been more climactic, really. It's just sort of like trying to recapture some of the nostalgia factor, which is literally cited in the text. Unfortunately, I don't think nostalgia particularly works for these characters anymore because it has been so long since they've interacted. Mm-hmm. A more appropriate reaction would be to be incredibly weirded out by each other.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I think I have long argued that the girls have sort of been involved a little more with the boys, but like the Two Rivers people should have been in closer contact throughout the entire series. You know, not necessarily having their subplots intersect all of the time, but at least, like, in communication with each other at different points. So just, like, having these people interact after 2 years apart and just be like, wow, Matt looks so weird. But he is the same old Matt. It's like, that's just a fallacy.
Yeah, especially, I think we've hit on this for Matt in particular. Like, Matt is so eldritch and fey these days. Like, Mattis gives off the weirdest vibes. Like, especially if you knew Matt pre-memory loss, pre-dagger. And again, Perrin hasn't seen Matt since book 4. Mm-hmm. So that's basically all. Even if he knew him maybe a little bit post-dagger, he did not know him post-doorway. Mm-mm. So, yeah, for Perrin to just be like, Matt's such a goof. And not be like, what the fuck happened to him?
Be like, hey, what?
Yeah.
And, like, in all fairness, Perrin's in the Eldritch category himself these days.
That's a good point.
He's toting around a 4-foot hammer.
Golden eyes.
He's constantly gazing off into the middle distance to communicate with wolves.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit more self-confidence these days.
Yeah.
He's, like, variously, like, you guys have been through some shit.
Yeah.
Having us just sort of, like, recapture the vibes of their youth sort of, I guess, lessens the impact of what they've been through.
Yeah, I think so, too.
You're just kind of like, oh, well, nothing's really changed. And it's like, in fact, everything has changed. So, and I would like the text to reflect that in some substantive way.
Yeah, it's also, like, a really crucial part of the hero's journey that you return to the same place, but you are not the same person. Yeah. And even if they're not, literally returning to the Two Rivers, them coming together is a sort of symbolic return to their past, and they are both incredibly different. So for them to just, like, be lads is just, like, it rings not true for the text and just, like, not true for the archetypes and mythologies that we're playing with, so it feels very out of place.
Yeah, agreed.
Can't unring the bell, boys. Mm-hmm. And by boys, I mean Brandon and Robert.
Well, I don't have anything more to say about those chapters, do you?
Nope.
Well, it was a short episode, especially once I cut out all of the chat about zombies and vampires. Blooper reel.
That's not my best articulated argument about zombies, so you guys aren't missing anything.
Our next segment of chapters will be about, like, Elaine, Perrin, Morgause all sort of interacting, and there will be, like, the Two Rivers as a political entity is sort of being resolved. Avienda will get to Ruidaean, though not necessarily. We'll get a longer segment with her going through the arches in a little bit. We will go back to Tuon, tragically.
Disgusting.
Matt and Perrin will have a longer chat about what's been going down, and crucially, chapter 46 is a single point of view, and this is where we will be introduced to Brandon Sanderson's fave, Andral, who is one of the Ashaman at the Black Tower and sort of our insider point of view for this book and the next book. And it's really weird to me that he only has the, like, one point of view in this book because he feels like such a major addition to the cast, but I think it's just because in A Memory of Light, we switched to Andral a lot. He is, like, in it a lot. Because the Black Tower subplot, we cannot wrap up before the last battle, so it is going to be one of very few subplots that is still getting returned to throughout. But Andral, I think, will at least be interesting because we'll get to see what's going on inside the Black Tower, and it won't be through a woman who's being sexually coerced or anything like that. So we'll at least not have to wade through that misogyny in order to understand what's going on.
That's nice.
Yeah. Andrew's a very, like, classic Brandon Sanderson type character, so if you like Brandon Sanderson characters, you'll like him. If you don't, you won't. But, overall, I at least am like, yeah, I want to know what's going on in the Black Tower.
Sure, the Black Tower is one of the more interesting things that's happening in this world, and we just continuously leave Mazrim Tem
Yeah,
and
we're
his
just
cult
kinda, like-
behavior to the side.
Which in some ways I think works.
Sure.
It's, like, leaves a level of just ominousness on the horizon. Like, what's going on in that freaky place?
Yeah.
You know, it's like a walled off
Yeah.
cult
Sure.
somewhere. There's, like, something's happening in there. And something is happening in there.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Probably not anything that we don't already know about, but, you know, the scale will become more evident. So that's what's on the horizon. But thanks was my
What's
mood?
your mood, Emily?
I don't know. What's your mood?
I feel quite apathetic about everything, so dead inside, maybe.
Yeah, it's like, doesn't make me mad, all the marriage stuff. It just sort of makes me like,
I forgot what this color was supposed to be. I'll have to listen to last week's episode.
maybe just apathetic.
Yeah. All the marriage stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just all the marriage stuff. I'm too tired to feel angry about
Yeah.
it, really. It's just like, yeah, another day.
Just
Another
another
dollar.
day. I think I've already spent all my anger I have to spend at Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson's by proxy insistence
We'll see about that.
that women get married.
Yeah.
Just about that. I've not expended all my anger
And
at
I was
Robert
like,
Jordan.
oh, you wait.
Yeah, no, I've got plenty
Wait till
of that
Moiraine
left.
marries Tom. Yeah, you'll
Luckily, I knew about that one in advance, or I would just like throw the book out the window and be like, podcast over.
feel like quitting the podcast. Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty dead inside
Right.
/ resigned also.
Yeller.
But thank you for listening. Thanks to Glenn Mackenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media. Do you have a sign off?
Ugh, yes. You guys, there is something wrong with me. I've been acting like a total idiot at work. I don't know what's happening. Today, I am a grants manager, for those of you who do not know. Not that it matters, but we're working on a grant application, and for government grants, which is what I work on, you typically have to attend pre-application meetings where you get to like ask questions and hear what the requirements are. It's like a federal requirement sometimes. And in my defense, this office in the past has done things like this where they just don't post something. So I was like, hey, I'm having trouble finding the appendices I need to fill out for this application. And they just scrolled to the bottom of the webpage and there they were. And it was so humiliating. I felt like the biggest idiot in the entire world, especially because on that call was the new director of the office that funds not just this program, but other programs in my agency, and our new contact for our contract. So I'm going to be leaving the planet, and I'll see you guys later. Consider that your dumb coworker might be me. How would you treat them?
All right, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
week.